Welcome back to the Life of Lex. I'm your host, Lex or Alex. And this is a podcast where I'm doing it for the culture. I hope you guys are having a fantabulous week. Welcome to episode 12 of the Life of Lex. That's pretty insane that this is the 12th episode of this podcast. I definitely can say this podcast has grown in many, many ways since episode 1. So I certainly hope people that checked out the podcast recently haven't just listened to episode 1, been like ooh and left, because I swear it gets better. I actually hope that people start checking it out from the most recent episode and then going downwards. I hope you guys are having an okay week. I think that this week has been a very, very, just a week that I feel like is generally very tough. I feel like I was already having a tough week at the beginning of the week. There was just a lot of shenanigans, a lot of things going on with school and with home, and just a lot of things that I was not feeling. I was really not with it this week. This week really tested me heavily. Of course, it's been a big week to talk about mental health, although I always talk about mental health because I know that it doesn't take a prominent figure going to kind of speak about mental health, but I think this week has brought up some important kind of points when talking about mental health, and some points when kind of dealing with your loved ones or dealing with people around, people and their mental health. But I'll talk about that later in the show, and that is actually going to be the theme of this week's episode, just a candid talk about mental health and about life. And it's funny because I had another podcast that I was going to do this week. I had another topic. For every week, I plan the podcast out. I write the topics down on, in my little journal, and then I plan to do it throughout the week. And I'll write down current events and whatever else is going on throughout the week, and then I have my main topic that I talk about in the second half of the show. But something told me at the beginning of this week, scratch that topic and do a podcast on mental health. And this was even before, the Kate Spade or Anthony Bourdain suicides. This was actually before that. This was Monday, I believe, that I was just like, all right, I gotta scratch this and do a mental health podcast. And then, of course, it became very relevant. It's always very relevant, and this is what people don't understand. This stuff is always very, very relevant. But talk about that later. So I do want to say thank you guys so much for checking out the podcast. One big thing I do want to talk about is that the podcast is now hosted on Libsyn. For you guys, that may not really mean much, especially for my iTunes listeners, because you guys are in the exact same spot. Nothing has changed. The podcast is still on iTunes. But now that the podcast is hosted on Libsyn, there is a direct link that you can use to get to this podcast. And there you can actually find links to every platform that the podcast is on, as well as direct links from this website to listen to the podcast. And that is thelifeoflex.libsyn.com. So I will definitely put that in the show notes. And that is basically the podcast website. There you can find the show notes. You can find a direct link to listen to the podcast. You can also find direct download links. And you can also find links to iTunes, Soundcloud, and all other platforms that the podcast is listed on. I know I said last week that I was a little bit apprehensive about continuing to host on SoundCloud because I didn't want to pay for both Libsyn and SoundCloud. It's not that I don't want to pay for it. It's literally that it's not. That's $30 a month. Plus, I already subscribe to Apple Music and other things, so it's just going to be a lot of money in subscriptions per month. But I was actually given a great idea from Trace/Killa on SoundCloud, so shout out to you. I believe you are a listener because you have to be a listener because you heard what I was you heard my kind of problems. So thank you so much for this suggestion, and I am going to be doing this. So basically I did downgrade my SoundCloud to free mode. It's still currently on premium mode right now because I already paid for this month. But what I'm going to be doing is now just uploading basically like 1 or 2 episodes on SoundCloud. So I'll upload probably 2 episodes that I'll be able to put on there. So you'll be able to find on SoundCloud the week, okay, I can't talk right now. Let me say this correctly. You will be able to find on SoundCloud the current episode that is out, and the previous episode that was released the week before. So you'll be able to find 2 episodes on SoundCloud, and then I am going to delete them, because with a free trial, not a free trial, with a free account, you only get 3 hours of recording time, and usually these episodes are about 2 hours long. No, they're not. My bad. For the people who are checking this out, they're gonna be like, what? 2 hours long? No, these episodes are usually about an hour long. So you will be able to find, for instance, if now my SoundCloud is downgraded to free mode, you would be able to find this week's episode, as in this episode, and last week's episode. And then after that, I will delete the 2 episodes, and then I will put them back up on the brand new episodes up on SoundCloud. So there will always be 2 episodes on SoundCloud at once. And if you do want to find previous episodes, like I said, you will definitely be able to access Libsyn, and on Libsyn, every episode will be there. You don't have to have a subscription or anything like that. It is just a direct download link, or a direct listening link, and you will be able to find all previous episodes there. Because I do understand that a lot of you guys are SoundCloud only listeners. You don't have an iPhone or want to download the podcast app or anything like that, and that is completely understandable. So we are still staying on SoundCloud. It's just going to be that only the last 2 episodes that I download are going to be available there. If you are looking for all episodes, once again, that will be available on Libsyn. I'm sorry for that very poor explanation. Like, this in my head, I know what I'm saying in my head, but it's like when I'm trying to explain it, it's not coming out. So sorry, guys. That made no sense. But just know that if you're looking for an episode on SoundCloud, if you see a link that an episode is on SoundCloud, it will be there, and you will be able to listen to the prior week's episode as well. Okay. I also want to say thank you guys so much for listening and checking out the podcast. As I said, every single time somebody listens to this podcast, especially when someone listens to it all the way through, I'm just like, okay, this is amazing. The fact that you could really sit here and listen to me talk for an hour. The funny part is when I first started this podcast, I intended for the podcast to be around 30 minutes long, but y'all know I talk a lot, so that didn't happen. I also want to let you guys know the podcast is now on YouTube, just the audio as of right now. I am in the future, and this is a future plan, so don't get on me about it right this second, but I am in the future planning to do some bonus video podcasts, or videos in general, not even necessarily video podcasts, but I was thinking maybe doing reviews. I don't know yet exactly what I want to do that's going to be a video, but it's going to be a companion to this podcast. So in other words, I'm not going to be starting a YouTube channel and doing YouTube videos by itself, but it'll be a bonus to this podcast in the future. But that's not a right now type of thing. But I am, as of right now, putting the audio to the podcast on YouTube. I've seen a few of you guys listening there, so I do think that's good for some of you guys. I do think you guys like that. So if you want to listen to the audio on YouTube, I will definitely leave a link to it in the show notes. You can search my YouTube. It's just my first and last name, Alexandra Addison, and you will be able to find it. And you can listen to the podcast there. So yes, I do want to just say, please make sure that you are going on iTunes and rating the podcast, reviewing the podcast. All of these ratings and reviews really, 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 really help me. And thank you for supporting. So that's the fastest I ever did my intro. Wow, my voice is... What is wrong with my voice? All right, guys. My voice is deciding to leave the building, so let's get this podcast done real quick so my voice don't leave the building. So I don't have that many current events this week because I feel like this week was very centered and very focused on the 2 suicides that happened, Anthony Bourdain, Kate Spade. But I do have a couple of other things, so we're gonna go through those. And you know me, I'll probably find a bunch of stuff to talk about pertaining to that. So the first thing that I saw is that SZA's voice is permanently damaged. I'm not a fan of SZA, but I just thought it was funny. Someone quoted, she literally whispers in cursive and her vocal cords are permanently damaged. So I guess this isn't going to be saying about no noiiiigas and apples and bananas anymore because her vocal cords. No, but for real, I hope she's okay. I know that she's a singer, so that's her career right there if her vocal cords are damaged, right? It's like if a basketball player gets permanently injured or something, or a sports player, an athlete, so I do hope she's okay, but I just thought it was funny. Someone was like, she whispers in cursive. How are her vocal cords damaged? iOS 12 this week, iOS 12 came out. Apple released iOS 12's little keynotes, so they told us about a whole bunch of different features. I guess the biggest and most expected one being that group FaceTime is coming to the iPhone and the Mac in the fall when it's released, and you can add up to 32 people, which I just want to know in what planet you need to be on a FaceTime with 32 people. That is a whole conference call. That is a company meeting. Like, who has 32 friends out here? Like, is anybody going to be putting 32 people on a FaceTime? I could not even imagine trying to talk in that kind of FaceTime. Everybody would be all up just speaking on top of one another. Like, I can't picture sitting in a group FaceTime for 32 minutes. So please enlighten me if anybody is going to be planning to add 32 people. I don't know. I don't really care all that much about the group FaceTime. I think Apple is very late with this, and knowing Apple, they're going to talk about it and talk about how amazing it's going to be, and it's not going to work because what would Apple products be without Apple literally ranting and raving about how great it's going to be and then actually using it, and there's so many glitches, and then Apple stepping back and being like, no, you see, you got to do this. I'll never forget how like the iPhones would just start like malfunctioning, and they were like, that's because you have to turn your phone off every day for 10 minutes, and everybody was like, what? Since when do you have to turn your iPhone off in order for it to work correctly? That doesn't even make sense. So we'll see about that. IHOP is changing its name to iHob with a B on the end, which I thought was just like, why they gotta do that? You know, that's just an example of just like niggas doing things because they ain't got nothing better to do. I'm thinking that it's gonna be International House of Breakfast. But I still just don't see why does it matter? Oh, IHOP. Oh, IHOP. And Issa Rae, she said this phenomenal quote. I love me some Issa. She is queen. Issa said, I'm as fashionable as Kanye is black, only when it's convenient. That joke was my choice, just like slavery. And she said it in front of Kim Kardashian because she was hosting the CDFA Awards. And people were like, why would she say that in front of Kim? And I was just like, what the fuck is Kim Kardashian gonna do? Is Kim Kardashian gonna go stomp out Issa Rae? I don't think so. Kim's gonna go cry and be like, I can't believe people are disrespecting him like this. They don't know him. He's actually such a good guy, and they just judge him immediately. With that ugly ass crying face that she had. I'm sorry, but Kim Kardashian's crying face is legendary. And she knows it too. She even made emojis and stickers out of it, like, and phone cases. So Kim knows. So it's not like I'm shaming her or nothing because she makes fun of it herself. So I think it's fair game. But I can't. That's just funny. Also, this season of Insecure is apparently going to be about what was it going to be about? Let me check Twitter real quick because I just retweeted the tweet yesterday. But Issa Rae just revealed that this season of Insecure is going to be about It's going to be about black masculinity, which I can already see niggas about to be so hurt and in their feelings. I can't wait. I love Issa Rae because it's clear that she don't give a fuck. She's like, I am black as fuck. I'm awkward and I'm going to say whatever the hell I want because y'all are annoying. And that is the aesthetic I dream to embody. Okay? Dream. I just need to say I'm really tired of people trying to embrace this quirky, weird, like I'm so weird, like it's like borderline uncomfortable personality. And I'm not talking about weird people because I'm weird, but I'm talking about that personality. Y'all know what I'm talking about. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that, like, especially like I feel like white girls really be trying to do it, or like white people. It's just like that I'm so fucking like weird and awkward. Selena Gomez, all right, let me just say what I'm talking about. Selena Gomez released this video on Twitter the other day. Just go look at her Twitter, and it was so uncomfortable. I'm like, why are you doing this? Like, I'm tired of y'all trying to embrace this personality that clearly is not yours. Like, truly weird people have been made fun of our whole lives. Like, people have made fun of me my whole fucking life for being weird. And now all of a sudden, y'all want to make being weird trendy. But you don't even like actual weird people. That's the funny part, is that it's like y'all like faux weirdness and like aesthetic trendy weirdness. And to be honest, y'all aesthetic weirdness ain't even weird. It's just, it's all trend. But true weird people, such as myself, get like 85 looks when I'm like in public because I'm such, like, I'm so weird. It just don't make sense. It don't make sense. But that's actually all of the current events that I have this week, because obviously the end of this week was centrally focused on two huge suicides, so there really was no other big events that really, at least in my eyes, I thought were really worth talking about. And yeah, this episode actually is a very, like, I just want it to be a very candid and a very deep and a very honest episode, because I think that for myself this week, I really, really, really was in my mental health. I really felt myself kind of reverting back to how I felt at the darkest points of my life over some events that had happened. There was a few things that happened. There was something that happened with my school. There was another thing that happened at home. And it was just so many different things that had happened. I myself was feeling like, all right, I need to get a boost of confidence, a boost of motivation going. And you know, I was very lucky that I had my boyfriend, and he's always the person that really does believe and understand that it's going to be okay, that I'm going to be okay, and that there will be a way out of it. And I feel like in the back of my head, I believe that I'm going to be okay and everything's going to be okay and there's not going to be any problems. But it was still so difficult this week. And of course, we've seen two prominent figures commit suicide. Not funny. Funny is not the word that I was at all going for. I was gonna say the thing about it is that this is a problem every single day. This is a problem every single week, every single minute, every single moment. And I think that social mental illness. I think that mental illness is such a nuanced and very, very complex issue. And I think that with the suicides of Anthony Bourdain and Kate Spade, I've really seen some people saying some really ignorant stuff pertaining to mental illness. It's clear that people who have never suffered from a severe mental illness in their life are sitting here and talking out of the side of their neck. And that's really, really frustrating to me, because I just feel like you would never be saying these things if you had ever been in this position. You would never be saying these things if you had gone through it. I think one of the biggest things that people have been saying is, well, How could they leave their friends and family behind? That's so selfish. Shouldn't their friends and family make them want to live? And if only it was that easy. If only it was that simple. If only it was that straightforward that your family members or your friends or even your kids could make you want to live. The thing is, when you're in a really dark spot, mental illness doesn't have distractions. There's no breaks. There's no like days off from it. And even as much as like you can have everything in the world, you could be doing so many things. You could even have the coolest job ever. I mean, look at Anthony Bourdain, like the coolest job ever. His job was sick. I'd love to go around the world and do what he was doing. But like, this is not the point. You know, you can have all of these things. You can have everything. And I put that in air quotes. You can have it all, and you can still be suffering inside. You can still be going through it inside. You know, mental illness is so deep. Mental illness is, first off, a lot of people do not even understand that it's caused by a chemical imbalance in your brain. Like, it's not just an emotional thing, it is a literal imbalance. For some people, they need actual medication and therapy to regulate these levels. And if you're not having these levels regulated in some fashion, whether through a therapy, whether through a medication regimen, whether through both, it can be very dangerous. But also if you're on a medication and it's not the right medication, or if you are, you know, the point that I'm trying to make is that you cannot distract yourself from these things, because at the end of the day, regardless of if you have kids, family, cool job, lots of money, it's like at the end of the day, all the only person you're with is yourself. And that's real. Like, it doesn't matter. And I don't, of course, it's horrible to leave your friends, your family, your significant other, your kids, whoever. Of course, it is horrible to leave those people behind. But at the end of the day, when you're in that dark spot, like nothing matters. And like you can still love your kids, but honestly, you can hate being here more than you love them. And that's a concept that like a lot of people do think is selfish. That's a concept that a lot of people do think is horrible. A lot of people do think that that is, I think this is where mental health gets the whole, well, it's selfish. Suicide is selfish. But people genuinely don't get it that if you don't want to live, you don't want to live, and nobody can make you want to live. It doesn't matter who they are. There has to be some sliver of hope, some sliver of wanting to be here in your own body for you to be here. Otherwise, it doesn't matter how many distractions you put in your life. At the end of the day, that darkness will come back to you. And listen, some people can become so fulfilled in their life but still struggle internally with everything. And it's sad. And honestly, listen, I can't even say myself that I fully understand it, because I'm gonna keep it a stack. In my life, I have definitely been suicidal. There have definitely been times in my life where I was like, I do not want to be here. There have definitely been times in my life where I was done. But the thing about it is that I am here today. And that the thing is, today I want to be here and I am good. And no matter what, I now realize that there is a future, there is opportunity for me, there is so many different things, and I don't at all in my life feel like I need to leave. But there have been times that I did, but I never got to that full point where I was like, it is over, the bottom is here. Even at the times where I thought I wanted to go, there was still a part of me that didn't, because I would talk about it, because I would say something. And I can't myself say that I really understand it. I can't at all. I really can't. We don't know the history of, like for instance, someone like Anthony Bourdain. We don't know like everything he went through. We don't know why he felt that darkness, but it is really sad and it's really tough. And I think that right now the biggest problem that we have pertaining to mental illness is that there's so much stigmatization around this that so many people have to suffer in silence. I think that, I think the notion of check on your loved ones, hear them out, listen to them, listen, I get it that people do check up on their loved ones. I get it that people do check up on their family or their friends. But the problem is that I believe that what happens is you need to actually make sure that the person that you're checking up on is comfortable to talk to you. If this person's entire life, or maybe if your entire friendship or your entire relationship, you've been putting them down for their feelings, it doesn't matter if you ask them if they're okay because they're not going to say anything. They're not going to talk. You have to make sure that you're actually making the person comfortable. Otherwise, asking if they're okay means nothing. This involves challenging the stigmas surrounding mental illness. I think this really involves challenging the negativity surrounding it and really normalizing the talks about mental illness, normalizing talking about your symptoms. A lot of people, especially in the Black community, and being a Black woman, I for sure have experienced this and seen this in my own life. Mental illness is really, really, really looked at as like a a choice or a joke or a cry for attention, when in reality that's not the case always. And you know what? Some people do want attention. Some people do want love. Yes, a lot of times people do get depressed because they feel like they have nobody. They feel like they don't have any love. But the thing is, this is also not a choice. And I think, especially being Black, I feel like Black people have the highest rates of depression, anxiety, and I think there's a pretty considerably high number of suicides in the Black community because a lot of being Black is suffering. Like, that's just the truth. A lot of being Black is suffering. A lot of being Black is dealing with abuse that's normalized in our community. And I think that as a whole, I know for a fact the Black community needs to do better, much, much better, because there's a lot of depression, emotional problems, and all kinds of behavioral issues that stem from this abuse. And I think with Black people, we display mental illness differently than other races. I'm not saying like it's, of course we have similar symptoms, but a lot of times with Black people, it can also come out in anger. It can come out in aggression. Your man's or your girl who's always angry as fuck could potentially really be struggling with whether it's anxiety, whether it's depression. Think about all these abusive relationships, can't even really keep a good relationship because of constant, relationship issues, abandonment issues, trust issues, all of these different things. These all stem from, not all the time. Like, I don't want you guys to think I'm saying all the time, every single time. But a lot of times these all stem from mental illness, and a lot of people neglect their mental health and go on to be, adults in this world who are still continuing cycles of toxicity onto their children, and then their children continue the cycles. And I feel like we need to nip mental health care in the bud. It shouldn't be embarrassing to talk about going through stuff with your mental health. It should not be embarrassing to say, hey, I need therapy. I mean, people have all kinds of other health issues and go to a doctor and it's no big deal, but people be like really embarrassed to go to therapy. People are really ashamed to say, I am depressed or I do have bad anxiety, it does affect everything I do. It does affect my life and it does affect my quality of life. So I need help. And I completely understand that because nobody wants to be told, oh, just go to church. Listen, I love God. Okay, I love God. God is my homie. For real, for real. Like, I love God. No, like, I'm kidding, but like, I love God. Like, I really do. But I dare somebody to tell me to my face to go to church because I'm depressed. Like, that is just so disrespectful. It is so out of like left field. It's just not helpful on any way, shape, or form. You know, nobody wants to be told that they're just making it up. Nobody wants to be told that they're fine. Nobody wants to be told, oh, you have a roof over your head, so why are you depressed? You have food to eat, so why are you depressed? You have everything, so why are you depressed? That's the thing. How many people that have everything are still committing suicide? I need the stigma to stop that mental illness only plagues like poor, homeless people who are struggling and have nothing. When in reality, socioeconomic class, race, none of these things matter when it comes to whether or not you're going to suffer from a mental health issue. You know, it doesn't really matter. Even people, you know, a lot of people who grow up to have it all struggled in the early parts of their life really badly, and a lot of trauma is left. And if you don't resurface that trauma and deal with it, this is what comes back to bite you later on. You can have so many distractions which bring you from rags to riches, but it's like if you never really attack those demons, they can come back. And I think that's why for myself, it's been so pertinent and important for me to start caring for my mental health. You know, resurfacing demons, resurfacing traumas, resurfacing all kinds of things, having the recognition of certain things. It's hard. Like, it's not easy to look at people around you or situations around you and be like, ooh, that really fucked me up and I need to distance myself. But I also have come to the realization that I was going down a very dark spiral in my own life and I did not want to continue to go down that path. I wanted to be able to turn around, look at my life, and say that I took my life back, to say that I mentally understood that there is, you know, the light, to see that I understand that there is more than everything I've gone through. And of course, it's not easy. It's not easy to attack your mental, you know, to attack that mental illness. It is not easy. It's not easy at all to turn around and be like, you know what? My parents are the most detrimental people in my life, or something like that. It is not easy. I don't want anyone to think that what I'm saying is easy. It's not easy to distance yourself from people who are supposed to be the closest to you. But at the end of the day, for myself at least, and I think for everybody, I think you really should see and understand that you have to love yourself first. You know, you have to really get this trauma. You know, if you're going through something hard, you have to get, like, for me, like, as I said, a lot of things happened when I was younger and I was like, oh, it's no big deal, whatever. And a lot of it came back when I got older, and it's like I really found myself getting very depressed very quickly. And I was like, okay, whoa, this is not going to cut it. And this year I went to therapy, you know, I started talking to my boyfriend, I started kind of distancing myself from people who didn't really, you know, benefit me. And I started focusing on myself, doing self care for me, doing things that I love, you know, doing things that I truly enjoy, going down a life path that I could see myself going down. I mean, my gosh, I started off college as a business major. Shit, I'm sure I would probably be making 5 times the amount of money that I'll be making as a journalism major. I'm sure that, yeah, going into a business field, you know, let me not even say that. Let me not say that. Let me take that back, because I'm gonna be hella successful in this podcasting game, in this in this content creation game, in this helping game. But I'm sure that going into a business field would have been an easier entry into a higher level job. I'm sure if I was majoring in finance or marketing like I once was doing, I'm sure I would have probably been in ample position for, to get into the money making field easier. But I came to the realization that I was never going to be happy in that field, that I was going to be getting money, getting money, getting money, but going home and being sitting in depression, sitting in darkness, because it was not truly myself. It was not truly me. I was not truly doing what my heart wanted me to do. And now I'm a journalism major and I plan to have this freelance podcast and other content that I'm going to be making. And listen, is that going to be much, much, much more difficult? Sure, of course. But I also know that in my heart, I'm going to be feeling better. I also know that in my heart, I'm not going to be miserable on a daily basis. And I know for myself, I've really come to the realization life is not about money, materialistic items, or anything like that. Because those things don't bring you joy. They don't bring you happiness. It's temporary happiness. It's faux happiness. You can still have all of the cool stuff in the world and still want to die. Like, that's tea. Like, it's just truth. So you have to do what your heart genuinely wants you to do. You have to do what you genuinely have to do what you feel fulfilled in. And figuring that out requires self-searching. It requires self-reflection. It requires a lot of evaluation. And this is very important going into the future. I now have told myself I will always be unapologetically myself no matter what. I will always do whatever it is that I would like to do, whatever it is I know is going to make me happy. Because at the end of the day, what happens when you're doing things that aren't truly for you, or pushing aside your traumas and not dealing with them, or pushing aside things that you struggle with, is it comes back to bite you. It really does. And yeah, you can make happiness, and yeah, you can be better, but it still requires attacking what's getting you in this very moment. I do want to put out there that one of the biggest things that I've learned is that there is nothing inherently wrong with me. I always grew up thinking something was wrong with me. I always, throughout, like, when I was a teenager and when I was in middle school and things as such, I always thought that I had problems and issues. I always wondered why people didn't like me or whatever the case may be. And the biggest thing that has helped me to move forward is to realize there is nothing wrong with me. There's nothing inherently wrong with me, that I am not a bad person, that I know my own heart, I know myself as a person, and that I have a lot of potential. There is a lot of good things about me, and I want all of you guys to know there's a lot of good things about you. Just because you're depressed and it may make you into a person you don't want to be, or just because you have anxiety and so maybe you don't shine at all times like you would like to, does not mean that you're a horrible person. I think that a lot of us do suffer from mental illness, and it doesn't always have us on our A game. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, I just know that I feel like everybody should really take the time to care for themselves, and really take that time for that self-care, that self-evaluation, and that self-growth. Because it does not matter whatever excuse you have to make. If you're not focusing on yourself, if you're not focusing on your mental health, if you're not focusing on your goals, your aspirations, you will not be happy. And that to me is not worth it. Like, the one thing I've come to realize is it's not worth it to be unhappy just to have certain things. It's not worth it for me to be unhappy just to, like, pretend that everything is chill if it's not. It's not worth it for me to be unhappy just so I can have money or materialistic items. None of that is worth unhappiness to me anymore because I did a lot of that and it didn't bring me anywhere. I did a lot of that and listen, I was not going down a good path, and I really do think in talks about mental illness, we need to normalize talking about mental illness. We need to take away the stigma that something's wrong with people who have mental illnesses, that they're psycho, that they're crazy, that they're just crying for attention, that they're making it up, that it's a personal choice, that we can just decide to wake up one day and be happy, because all of that is so wrong. We need to stop villainizing and making people who have mental illnesses seem like terrible and bad people. And honestly, you need to be there for your friends. And when I say be there for your friends, family, loved ones, whatever, you need to actually be a source of comfort. You need to be a source of opening up to them. You need to actually allow them to open up without having a negative reaction, without sitting here and judging them, without manipulating them, without gaslighting them, without making them feel bad about themselves, because that's not being there, okay? Just because you ask someone, are they okay? But you know in the past that you've constantly made them feel bad about themselves, or that you've constantly judged them when they've tried to talk to you. No, we need to change these talks on mental illness. I don't even think it's about bringing awareness at this point. It's about changing the stigma, because people are aware. It's just that people have such a negative stigma with it that they choose to either ignore it or to very heavily judge it. So, that's this week's episode, guys. I do have a question, an outgoing question for you guys this week. I would love to know what you guys do when it comes to self-care, to make sure that you do stay mentally sound. What are your favorite self-care methods? What self-care recommendations do you guys have? Because I love to hear how other people care for themselves. I know for me, I actually podcast. This is very therapeutic. I journal. I love to watch my TV shows. I listen to music. I listen to a lot of podcasts. Things like that. I plan for my future, which really helps me. So I would love to hear how you guys self-care. So you guys can let me know that at my Tumblr account, which is Princess Failure with 3e's.tumblr.com. Or you can let me know at my Twitter, which is Alex Addison, 1_ after Addison. Or yeah, let me know on one of those two. Also, I am going to be doing the Q&A podcast, not next week, but the following week probably. So please keep sending your questions to my Tumblr ask box, Princess Failure with 3e's.tumblr.com/ask. I will put a link in the bottom description, show notes. Please make sure to check out the show notes, because that's where you can find a synopsis of what we're talking about, as well as my social media contact info and anything that I reference or link. You can all find that there. So definitely make sure to check that out. And make sure to subscribe on whatever platform you are listening on. I hope you guys are all taking care of yourselves this week. Please do. Please take that time for yourself if you need it. Please take a time out if you need one. And if you really do need help, you don't have to suffer alone. There are people out there who you can talk to. And I can't say who it is for everybody individually, but I do know that I will talk to you. So if you want to contact me through one of my social media methods, if you guys need help, if you need someone to talk to, please check the show notes, and you can contact me at any of those methods and I will get back to you. And yeah, please take care of yourselves, guys. Please know you're not alone, and know that you matter. Please put yourself first. Please. I'm begging you, because it's not going to be great if you don't. Have a great week, guys, and I will see you guys for the next podcast. Bye.